Hey everyone, welcome to Ed Talk TV, conversations worth having. So glad you're here. If you're watching the replay, even better, thank you for hanging out with us. Today we have a great topic ahead of us. We're going to be talking about how tech allows us to be more human with our audience and our clients. I'm super excited and I'll be bringing on a guest. But first, we're going to talk about the show, kind of how it's structured, and then also some random news. So let's jump into it. If this is your first time joining, welcome. If you're returning, awesome. Be sure to engage in the comments. That's the big thing. Even if you're watching the replay, it's all about the comments. And if you're watching the replay here on Facebook, you want to make sure that you use those emotions, not just the like button, but use the heart, use the laughing guy, all those fun emojis. Use that because it's one step past the like. And that's what we're trying to do here with the show is engage with our audience, engage with our people, everyone. It's a community building show. So even if we can't get to all your questions during the live broadcast, there's always time to follow up afterwards. That's why I always say the magic happens in the comments. So don't be shy. Make sure to share this out to your audience. Be sure to heart it up and be sure to jump into the comments. Even if it's just to say hi, that's okay. Our whole goal here is to get you more comfortable with standing out online. And that starts with dropping a comment. So that's the structure of the show. If you want to become a guest on the show, I would love to have you. Don't feel like you don't have something to share. Don't feel like you have to have a huge audience. It's not about that. It's about quality content. And we talk about business, tech, and the user experience here on the show. So you can watch previous episodes. Just search here on the Facebook page. And if you have questions, you can always ask. To find out more about the show and to become a guest, all you have to do later is go to checkwithed.com and click on the Facebook Live show. All the details are there for you. So before we jump into today's content, I want to talk about a random news, which is always fun to have something different, right? So I'm actually going to share my screen right now. If you're curious about what I'm using for my system here, I'm actually on my laptop, my Mac computer, and I have BeLive TV, BeLive.tv, I should say. And so it allows me to actually watch your comments come in. So you'll see me look down on the corner. And then it also allows me to switch my screens over. So that's what we're going to do here before bringing on our guest. I'm going to see if this video will be queued up for us, and I'm going to switch it over to some random news before we jump in. This gives you time to say hello in the comments, to share, and we'll go from there. So let me go ahead and get this video back to the beginning here because, it's been so cold. I can't really complain here in California. I mean, it's cold, but it's not nearly as cold as probably some of the places that you guys are tuning in from because I know it's a lot colder around the country. So let's go ahead and take a look at this fun video for random news. I'm going to switch over my screen here. There is no sound for this, so you don't have to check your sound in case you don't hear anything. And let me go ahead and play this. So this is somebody had posted this on my timeline and sharing how somebody was going to work and it was super icy. And look at that. He slid all the way down the driveway there. So, something fun, something different. That's one way to get to work, right? Is sliding down the driveway. So be careful out there because it's cold. So now that we've seen that, let me go ahead and close that out. And then we are going to jump into it. I'm going to go ahead and bring on my guest here. Give me 1 second to do that. And then we will go from there. And it notifies the guest, so that's what's cool. So let me go ahead and take this off. Hello, hello.
Hi, Ed. It's so good to be here.
How are you?
I am doing great, but I am cold. I'm in that Virginia area, and man, there was black ice everywhere this morning. That was no joke. That guy going down the driveway, I almost did that this morning. And so it is no joke over here on the East Coast. Just crazy.
Yeah,
weather.
It is really, really cold over there from what I've seen on the news. And even though I'm an East Coaster at heart, I am so happy I'm not there right now.
I can imagine over there in sunny California. Oh,
yeah. And actually, I will say the sun is a little bit out right now. We've had a lot of rain, which is good. We needed it.
Good.
But the clouds are starting to break up and we're starting to get some sunshine. So it is nice to see that.
Awesome. Well, I hope you enjoy the sunny weather over there for me. I would love
Yes,
to be there right now.
I will. So go ahead and introduce yourself to all of us here and let us know who you are and kind of what you do. And then we'll jump into today's topic. And I will be jumping into the comments as well. So if you see me, pop down, that's because I have the phone here so I can heart it up and help everyone else out. And then, yeah, we'll just jump into it.
I love that. Again, thank you for having me. My name is Brittany Rossi. I am a branding and business strategist. I specifically help female entrepreneurs and coaches simplify their branding and their business strategies. And I do that so that they can really focus in on their strengths. And that allows them to actually be profitable and make an impact in a way that feels good to them. And so that's what I do. And what was the other thing I was supposed to introduce myself about? I forgot.
Just who you are, your name, and then what you do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I do. So I do primarily coaching. Yeah.
Love it. And where did I end up finding you was in a Facebook group.
That's right.
On Facebook. And it's awesome because Facebook groups are huge and they are what have grown my business. They've grown me personally and all my relationships, both online and offline.
Yes.
What about for you, for Facebook groups?
Oh my gosh. I didn't realize when I was signing up to host a Facebook group, the personal development that I signed up for and engaging with people and, hosting and leading a whole community towards something that is impactful. And it is where I have gotten clients. I've also developed friendships offline out of it. I've gotten coffee with people offline and it wasn't weird. I had never really thought I would ever do that. And, I have actual friendships offline that have developed as a result of it. And it's been awesome. And so, yes, that's where we met as well in the Facebook group. And I'm so glad that we have. And I think this is our second time together, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, because you were on the Yes to Entrepreneurship podcast.
Yeah.
Which was awesome. And that's fun because that kind of led up to this having a real show now and being able to really bring it alive, which we'll talk more about in terms of the tech part. But that's the big thing about these Facebook groups is that they're not there's a ton of them, but they're not just just another thing to manage or another thing to do or to check into. It's a huge resource for you to really dive into and get knowledge, free knowledge, and establish relationships, which has just been huge for obviously both of us.
Yeah, it's a wonderfully supportive place. I don't think any Facebook group is the same, and that all has to do with the leadership of it, the people who gravitate towards those types of groups. And so I think it's really interesting what Facebook groups have done, how they've just exploded, because there are such things as I think Google has a similar idea of groups. And I poked my nose into them, just what's this over here? And it just wasn't the same. It was a totally different culture, right? And so, I think Facebook groups are really, really interesting for helping to develop that relational aspect when it comes to business.
Yeah, and for those watching, let us know in the comments, even if you're watching the replay, if you are in a Facebook group and what your thoughts are on Facebook groups, because that's always fun and it's always interesting to see how many people still are new to Facebook groups, because I meet a lot of people that have never even heard of it because that's something that's new to them. They just are normally on Facebook to post and to share with friends and family. So it's okay if you don't know what they are or if you haven't explored them yet, because it's all still fairly new.
Absolutely. And perhaps you tried joining a Facebook group and you didn't think it was a good fit for you, and then you kind of gave up on them. Also, let us know about that too, because not all Facebook groups are created equal. They are different. So let us know what your success has been with that. If you tried and you're like, I don't know. So
I love that. Yeah. And so how is tech changing things for us in terms of the better for our communication and stuff? Because usually when it comes to technology, everyone is like, tech is ruining everything. We are so not humanized anymore. We're not around people enough. So this is an interesting topic and one that I'm really excited about.
Me too. And I think before we start talking about the more, I think we have to acknowledge that there is a right and a wrong way to use technology, whether that's hardware like a phone or it's a software like an email marketing system. There is a right way to use it, and then there is a wrong way to use it. And the wrong way to use it will result in more stress, less creativity, and disconnection, right? We've all seen that family sitting around the dinner table at a restaurant and all on their cell phones, and everyone's disconnected, but they're connected with somebody else or something else. And I think it just depends on your value system. So before we jump into this topic, what it means to be more human, I think we're going to talk about is in that relational aspect. We're building high quality relationships, not just any kind of relationship, but the way it makes us more human is if we're using technology with a bigger end goal in mind, not just to post random pictures of cats. You can do that and have a ton of fun doing it. But if you're not using it, and there's a lot of science coming out behind this, if you're not using it to create high quality relationships, it's actually going to be a drain on your spirit, a drain on your whole overall system. And I think that that's really interesting. And so the right way to use technology when it comes to building those relationships, there's just so many different types of things. So I'd like to start with not so much the hardware, but more the software side of technology, things like Facebook software. Things like social media schedulers, things like email, right? Those are things that can have the potential, if we're not using them correctly, to be a drain on us and also make our audience and our clients feel like a number, to feel like that they're just a part of the machine, right? And so that's not good. That's not what we're going for. So the whole concept of technology is supposed to make our lives easier, right? Would you agree with that, Ed? Technology is supposed to make our lives easier. And so when we are using something like a social media scheduler, for example, it is us batching a whole bunch of content in advance so that we have content out there so people can get to know us and what we're about and see if maybe there's a connection here, right? But if all we ever do is use the social media scheduler to post information about us and we never engage with the people who are connecting with us, then we're missing that opportunity to build that high quality relationship. It's the initiation. That's what a social media scheduler should be used to do, is to be the initiation. What would you say? Would you agree?
Yeah, no, I totally, I'm over here like, yes, this is everything, because this is what I'm all about, is building those online relationships and not doing this automation thing. And actually, I've personally, for the most part, have gone away from scheduling posts. And mostly because, one, I prefer more just in the moment, like here it is. And now that I have the show that goes out on the page, I actually don't need to worry about too much more content on the actual page. Anything else is just bonus,
right?
Which we'll kind of talk about, because Kelly and Dana have some really great questions about groups versus pages. So we'll get into that as well. But yeah, it's one of those things that for me personally, I pretty much only use Buffer now for some of my tweets, because I'm not very present on Twitter. And it's more or less just to remind me to share out a blog post that I wrote, or to share out other people's content, but I don't want it like right this second. I want to kind of just put it out there in time slots. So that's pretty much what I'm using schedulers for now.
Right. There's so many different ways to use social media schedulers that suit your goals, right? But the goal should always be ultimately to engage socially. And I think sometimes if people don't grasp that concept very well, they'll feel like they're a content machine and putting out all this stuff, but never really engaging with people. And that can feel really empty. It can feel like you're not making an impact. And then ultimately you're like, why am I doing this? Why am I even bothering to do that? Same with email marketing. Using something as simple as segmentation. For those of you who don't know, segmentation is a very simple concept. It might be trickier to set up, but segmentation means I have a list of 100 people, and about 20 of them have already purchased my ebook. And so I'm going to segment those 20 people out and continue to share with the other 80 that I have an ebook, and this is what it's about. And so when we do that, what that does is it allows people to stop feeling like they're a number on our email list, and that we actually recognize they've purchased from us, and they will feel valued, and they'll say like, oh, and we can market something different to them, something for where maybe our ebook took them to the next step and they're ready for something else. There's something for the next level. So it's very simple in concept. It's just a matter of pulling these people aside and not marketing to them in the same way anymore. But that's a way that allows us to be more human and acknowledge like, hey, I have customers and I have clients and I want to treat them like they're human. If I bought a book from you, Ed, and you're like, awesome, great, thank you so much, I really appreciate that. Also, I have this book and it's the same exact book. Here you go. You're like, I just bought that from you. I already have that book. So that's kind of another way to make us more human with technology.
And that's so true. And, I will admit, everyone, that I have not dived in too far into my own personal email marketing plan in terms of segmentation. I try to just write my emails as kind of like an update and kind of be like more personal in the sense that I try to write them to the person themselves, I should say, versus just having a blank statement, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so if you're trying to write out those segments, though, first off, see what software you're using and then search their help menu. For instance, MailChimp has information on how to segment. So there's your support part. But then more importantly, write out on pen and paper exactly the steps you want. It's just like building a website or anything else. You really want to do step 1, 2, 3, whatever, or do circles and do a little mind map. That all will help you when you get to the technology part, because if you just jump into the tech part of it, it's going to be twice as hard, if not worse. So just my 2 cents on that.
I think those are wonderful 2 cents. Make it a quarter, because that was amazing. I love classic pen and paper for just doing an outline skeleton of the steps. Super helpful. And again, every software is going to be different. So if you're using Aweber, MailChimp, ConvertKit, ActiveCampaign, they all have different ways to utilize segmenting or tagging. Might have a different name depending on what software you're using. It looks like somebody already has some segmentation, so you are on the ball. Way to go. That is great work.
Yeah, Dana is doing great with already having that on there. And here's the cool thing. I wanted to also point out that not only does Dana already have the segmentation going on and commented, but she also shared with us that she didn't know what it was called. And that's okay.
Oh.
If you don't know the name for something, that's okay. You ask. Or in this case, you watch something and you're listening and you're like, oh, that's what that's called, So understand that that's okay. And it's great that you're participating in the comments, not just Dana, but everyone, even if you're watching the replay, because that's how conversations start. And that's how the relationships develop. So keep it up. Keep up the great work, guys.
Yes. And I think that transparency, I was going to share about this a little bit too. The willingness to be transparent and be like, oh, I didn't realize that was what that was called. Now I know, and I can move forward, or now I know, and I was already doing it. When tech goes awry, and like I have some emphasis on technology and system setup. I usually say system setup, but you're a tech guy, and when tech goes awry, which it does sometimes because it gets bugs or whatever, and we're confident enough to be transparent and be like, it's doing its own thing today. I think that makes us more human. It makes us feel less alone because we recognize, like, if I'm struggling and then I see you and you're like, Facebook isn't working today, I don't know why. It's like, oh, we're in the same boat. I'm not so far behind. I can.
That actually happened. What's today? Tuesday. That happened. Or is today Tuesday already? Yeah.
Today's Tuesday already.
Yeah. So on Sunday, that actually happened. I was working on my website, doing some techie stuff, like real techie, and it took longer than I anticipated because there was some weird stuff going on. And then I just logged on to Facebook and saw a friend posted a video, and she went live, shout out to Mickey, to share her tech story. And I commented on there and I was like, it's not just you. I had something too. And it changed her whole day. And then we had a conversation about it, and then others popped in. So it is really fun to be open and being transparent and just putting it out there. And that's why live video is so popular, because it puts us in connection with each other. It shows the real thing, what's really going on.
It's a very vulnerable place, and I think that can be very uncomfortable. I think there's this fear that, oh, they're not going to see us as an expert anymore, or what if I stumble over my words? What if I sneeze or something and like it just ruins the video? I don't know. For some people that matters to them. And I've talked with gals who have been like, oh, my nose was running and I had to keep sniffling and it made the whole video off. And I was like, was the content good? There's a difference, right? And so, but live video is very powerful in that way, because it puts us in the position of being vulnerable, which makes us more human. And that's just another way that this kind of tech, makes us more connected and allows us to make this high quality relationship. So it's a safer space.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I don't know if you saw last week, I had an episode where I tested the mic for this little webcam I got, and everyone was way too nice to me, because no one told me till almost the end of the show, that they could barely hear me. But guess what? They stayed on the entire broadcast. It still got a ton of replays and a ton of comments, because my guest's mic was working great, and they came for the content, right? They stayed there for the content, even though I watched like 2 seconds of it afterwards, and I was like, you guys, what's wrong with you? You should have told me.
You didn't tell me.
Not watch this. But the content was that good. So, that was fun. And that was an episode with Kim Doyle, if anybody's trying to watch the replay later.
I think I saw that one, actually.
Yeah. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. I was bummed that my you could still hear me if you really listened, but it wasn't as good as it could have been. That's
always so disappointing. You're like, but it happens, and you just got to roll with it sometimes, not dwell there. And
so
Kate
true.
Collier said that's why she created a safe space too. That's so good. Awesome, Kate. That is amazing.
We weren't trolling.
We weren't trolling. Awesome.
And about going back to a couple of the questions regarding the group, and let me scroll back just a little bit, because Kelly had a question about she said, can you speak more to the personal development as it relates to running a group? I host a group now and I want to be more engaged. So yeah, I can start on that one about the engagement part. It really comes down to, what's your why for having the group? And of course, Brittany, I'll let you chime in here in a second too, because you are actually managing your group really well. And because I have a group too, but for my group, it's really more or less like, let me just drop a resource for you and you can do what you want with it. It's not so much about, I'm in there every single day trying to cheer people on. Like, that's not what that group was meant for. That group was meant for me to just drop a tech tool or resource and for people to pick up whatever works for them. So my why is a little different for that. Eventually I'll create something a little more engaging, and but I decided to focus on my page. And the reason I did that was because, one, I needed something to focus on, and two, it was almost a challenge because everyone says that pages are dead, nobody goes to pages, so you create a page, but then you go straight to a group and create a group and try to work in there. And I don't know, I guess I just have to be one for the challenge. So I took the challenge and I decided I'm going to focus on the page, and then I'm going to focus more importantly on what Facebook wants, which is live video. And ever since doing that, my page has grown in engagement. It's grown in the follows. It's actually funny, if you look at the likes versus the follows, I don't have as many likes as I do people following the page, which is okay because I want more people following the page because they get notifications versus likes. So there's a strategy behind everything, and I just want you guys watching to know that's why when you come to the page here, you see it looks different. You see that there's something unique about it that you don't see on other pages. And that's because I focus on it and I'm really about that engagement. And then I'm also giving the platform what they want, which is live video, and even more so as a bonus, a show. That's where Facebook's going, is with the show. And I will tell you, live video has grown my page, but it's also showing up everywhere. Like I have people, if you watch yesterday's episode, we talked about this a little bit. I have people on my personal Facebook and everywhere saying, Ed, you're online all over the place. Like, it's good, you're killing it, but you're everywhere. And it's because of live video, you guys. That's the big thing. So that's like my little insight there from the pages versus the groups.
Yeah, and can you say that again, the question about the personal development, say it one more time for me.
Yeah, let me go back there. Thanks guys for commenting and being able to share this out. So let me go back to Kelly's question was, can you speak more to the personal development as it relates to running a group? I host a group now and I want to be more engaged.
Okay, so what I mentioned earlier, personal development, that was a little bit more for me to learn how to get a group to be engaged. How do I get them to respond and comment? And the way that I did that was I ended up commenting on every single comment back. And it wasn't just like a thumbs up. It wasn't just a thanks. It was a that's awesome. And then a follow-up question. Can you tell me a little bit more about this? Or how did you come to that? Or congratulations. Can you share how you got there a little bit, or maybe your steps or how long it took you? I started a dialogue, but that required sometimes for me to get a little bit vulnerable, right? My why behind my group was a little bit more of the encouragement, a little bit of a taste for people to see how I teach. It was also a way to stretch me and my teaching ability. Sometimes I was like, I don't know the answer to that. Let me go find out, which was fine because I love to learn. But it just was a experience in personal development for me personally, but it was also an experience for those in my community for personal development, because I was oftentimes challenging them to do things outside their comfort zone, challenging them to get visible, challenging them to write their content in a set amount of days and get it just knocked out. So there was that's kind of what I was going towards when I said personal development. Did that answer your question? Let us know in the comments if I answered the question to your satisfaction there.
Yeah, and what's cool is Kelly also mentioned that she wants it to be a community to help moms define success on their own terms, which I think is super cool.
Love that. And
to have that as your why, that's powerful. And to follow up to what you were saying about the comments, that's huge, you guys, obviously, because I talk about it all the time. But another case in point, after the broadcast, if you've been watching the show, after the broadcast, I go back through and pretty much comment on every single comment, even if it's just thanks for tuning in. I try to go back through there, one, because it becomes more personal, right? It's like, you showed up, I want to be able to thank you for your time. And two, it also helps with the actual video post, the live video post, because Facebook wants engagement, which is what we all want. And so you have to engage. So it's not just, let's just show up live here, do our thing, and then we're out. No, then we have to go through and follow up with questions. You may have personal questions that you want to ask Brittany. So then you would tag her, you would comment, you would go find her profile, things like that. So that's all part of starting the conversation. Doing the show is just one little piece of the puzzle. And the further you go and dive into the comments, the more engagement you're going to get naturally. And, Kelly, with your group and anybody else who has a Facebook group or a page or wherever you're hanging out, ask follow-up questions, see what's being posted. If you're in someone else's Facebook group, pay attention to what people are asking and see if you can respond somehow. Ask a follow-up question to practice. There's so many things available to you right here on this platform that are free and in your face every day. It's just now you're going to be more aware since we planted that seed.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And also, you're welcome, Kelly. I'm glad that answered your question. And one other thought that I had just to, I guess, top off that conversation was I also tried to create space for others to step up as a leader. I made sure that it wasn't my community, it was their community for support. And if they knew the answer, I don't know everything. I can't do everything 100%. I can only serve so many people ever. And so that allowed me to have confidence to step back and say, hey, does anybody have the answer to this question over here? And that also allowed people to feel free to like, oh, I can actually show up and support other women, or, you know, for moms, other moms can say like, hey, this has worked for me when I'm building my nap time empire, right? Because they're trying to do everything between snacks and nap time and school drop-offs and all of that good stuff. And so, you know, allowing people to show up humanly and say like, hey, this is where I'm struggling, or hey, I had a win in my life, I had a win in my business. And it just kind of flows from there. The engagement, once you comment on everything, people get the vibe of the community, and then it kind of starts flowing from there.
This is like my favorite topic. This is like everything right now. I love this because it's so true. And that's exactly what you want to do, is just dive in and just be open. And that's why also, depending on your group, if you're doing a Facebook group, by the way, you want to encourage people to share there, of course, depending on your why, but you want to encourage people to share there versus, say, maybe emailing you, because depending on how your group is structured and who you have. For instance, if I had a support group for tech, I would want to make sure that I have it set up so that people who are in that community can help each other while maybe they're waiting for me, or while they're trying to figure out something and they know somebody else has done it before. Like that's the power of these Facebook groups, is that so many people ask questions and they put it out there and see what happens, because that's what it is. It's a small community of like-minded people for that specific topic.
Absolutely. There are some communities that don't want to be set up that way, and that's totally their prerogative. But what I have seen personally is that the vibe, the culture of that particular Facebook group or Facebook community feels a little more dead. There's not as much engagement. But in the ones where the leaders have created space for others to show up and help each other, the community is vibrant, it's active, it's engaged, and it's really life-giving.
It's true. And, you know, I don't know if you've noticed this or if it ties into what you just said, but for me, since I'm in so many groups, there are some that are very restrictive in terms of the rules that I don't even, I feel bad saying that I don't even post unless it's like really, really dire need. There's times where I just really want to share something, but because there's so many rules, I don't know if that's going to be okay or not. Like my intentions are good for sharing, you know, whatever resource, but I don't want it to get flagged and be like, you broke the rule type thing. So then at some point, sometimes I'm like, forget it. Like I'm not even going to bother there. I'll share it somewhere else and just keep it moving. Because I don't want to sit there and go through every single Facebook group rules every time I want to post something, you know? So I don't know. So sometimes when it comes to rules, if you have too many, that also makes your community a lot quieter and a lot more dead, I guess.
Absolutely. And it depends on the leaders why they have this group in the first place. Some are private, like they're paid communities, so you have to pay in order to get in there as a part of like a course experience or just a group program. Every Facebook group has a different purpose. And so it just takes sometimes a little bit of time to find one that feels good to you, that suits you for where you're at in your business journey. And so it takes a little bit of feeling out.
Yeah. And, you know, if you guys are watching and you're like, man, I want to be a part of a Facebook group, or I'm curious what Facebook groups are out there. Like, it's really easy. The first thing that you can do without even knowing where to look is to post a status update asking what groups you should look at. Just ask your audience already, that your friends and people that are following you, ask what groups you're interested in, or have a specific topic and say, you know, anybody have recommendations on XYZ for a Facebook group, and see what happens. And then you can also go search for them if you want as well.
Definitely. You can search groups. There's sometimes if you join one, it'll tend to pop up recommended ones. And those are usually a pretty good bet for getting started to see if it'll be a good fit or not. And if you're a Facebook host or hostess, you these are really good tips for you. You can also say, hey, I'd like to collaborate and kind of cross-pollinate groups. Ask your own community what groups they're a part of, and why they like them and why they admire the leader. And then reach out to that person and say like, hey, do you want to collaborate? That's a really wonderful way to grow your community, to become human and say, hey, I think we have a lot of crossover. Or I talk about this and you talk about that. I think it's super complementary. I think we'd really benefit both of our audiences. I think that's another way to utilize the software to make that human connection.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, we're doing that right now, right? We're having that cross promotion. That's the beauty of doing Facebook Live, is that we can bring people on to either of our shows. We can combine our audiences so that people get to know each other in the comments and be able to follow up later. So it doesn't have to be just a Facebook group, guys. You can do this by just going live on your personal profile if you're not into business yet, or on your business page. You can just start going live and start having these engagements and ask people to be on there. It's just like being on a podcast or having a guest blogger, things like that.
And this is a concept that can transfer social media platforms. You don't have to just stay on Facebook. If Facebook's your place, awesome. But if your place is Twitter, host Twitter chats. Those are really effective in engagement, kind of creating an engagement firestorm, really. If your space is Instagram, do this on Instagram. It's a principle that can be transferred. So don't feel like you have to stay stuck on Facebook for groups. You can even go to Google Circles or whatever they're called. You can go over there, whatever your platform is. You can create your own communities usually.
And that's a great point. Is you need to go where your community is at, where the people are hanging out. You know, for me, the reason I chose my Facebook page to really focus in on and to go through and do live videos, because it translates to all my other content, is because Facebook is where it's at for me. That's where I can grow my relationships, where I can engage with people more, and it's just an easier platform versus Instagram for me. But for you, you might run your whole entire business off of Instagram and have this great relationship with your followers because that's your platform, you know, so go with what works for you.
Definitely. I couldn't agree with that information more, because there's a lot of copy out there that kind of makes you feel bad and like, well, if I'm not on this platform, then I'm never going to make it. I'm never going to be successful. If I don't have a Facebook group, I'll never be successful. If I don't have a Facebook page, I'll never be successful. And to some degree, there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's a matter of what makes sense for you, your strengths, and where your people are at. You can replicate the model. I like Facebook for lots of different reasons. Twitter is not my space, and that's okay. But there are people who are blowing it out of the water on Twitter. Like, that's amazing. That's not for me, you know? And being confident of where you're at and why you're there is really going to help you also resist that shiny object syndrome when it comes to latest and greatest technology trends that are like, oh, this is going to get you all the clients. This is going to get you all the followers. Kind of, it might, but maybe not. And that's okay too.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is everyone watching, remember, especially these days, it's not about the numbers. It's not about the number of likes and about the number of followers you have. No. It's about the engagement and who is interacting with you. Because let's face it, you only need one person to invest in you and what you're doing. That's all you really need. Even though we're all out here trying to get as many people to pay attention to us as possible, you only need that one person. So remember that and understand that you don't need all of these followers. You don't need to buy your followers. Please don't buy your followers. You don't need to do all of that. What you need to do is just focus and figure out what platform you want to be on, what content you're going to deliver, and then show up and deliver it. That's it.
Absolutely. And on that note, I had another thought when it comes to that one-to-one relationship for technology and making us more human to our one-to-one clients or maybe our one-to-one customer. One technology tool that I love, I'm not sure, I imagine you've heard of it. It's called Voxer. Let us know in the comments below if you've heard of Voxer. I love it because I have had experiences where I've signed up for something and I was supposed to get this unlimited email support. And like 3 days later, I would get a response. And then it was unlimited, but it was a big delay. It was when they were ready to get back to it, right? It wasn't highly responsive email support. And for me, I was like, man, I have this question today. I need it answered today. And so something I shifted in my own business was I started using Voxer. It's essentially a walkie-talkie tool. You can talk to me, ask a quick question, and I can be at the grocery store actually and say like, oh, this is how you do this. Click on this and this and this, and then it should work. And then I get a little beat back and it's like, oh, yep, that worked. Super efficient, super human contact that doesn't clog up your personal text inbox or voice messages in your text inbox. And it's a lot more efficient than email. And you can do this through Facebook messages. Same idea. There's a little microphone button and you just hold it. I believe you have a limit of 1 minute. But it, again, is just a very human way. If you've been following someone on Facebook for a while or on any social media platform and then you hear their voice, it's like, oh, they're a human. I can't tell you how many times I welcome people in my group. I was like, hey, I'm so glad you found me. And they're like, I've never been welcomed into a Facebook group like this. You're human. Like, that's amazing. And so just the Facebook Messenger voice, feature, and then Voxer, if you're having a long-term one-to-one relationship with a client, supporting them through something is very efficient and very human. Yes, that is very cool.
Yeah, that is really cool because I've heard of it and I looked into it a long time ago, and actually I have a friend, Jess Hoffman, who is using that, and she's like, because we always are on Facebook Messenger doing the audio, which is super convenient, and it's actually fun just doing the audio, because here's the other thing, guys. Doing audio saves you time because you're not sitting there typing every single thing out.
It's so efficient. I love it.
Yeah. So audio is so efficient. And because there's that 1 minute time limit on Facebook Messenger, she uses Voxer as well and really enjoys it. So now that I'm hearing it again from somebody else, I'm going to have to look into this again and see what I can pull up with that and see what I can put together, because it is huge and it's fun to have that audio part. You know, even with podcasting, the first time I started using the Anchor app, for those who are familiar, Anchor.fm is a great way to create your own podcast. Well, they have a call-in feature that allows you to call in to somebody's radio station. The first time I got one of those, I felt like a rock star, because you could hear your audience, you could hear the person that called in and hear them talk about you, talk about the show. And it's just so much fun. So, you know, the audio thing is really cool. And you guys are starting now by doing the comments, and then that will lead up to going live or doing live audio or just audio in general. So that's a great tool.
It is. It really has been a game changer, and the amount of progress a client can make because they're getting immediate feedback. And so they're not having to wait, you know, a day or two to get an email response. And even if you are pretty responsive to your emails, it takes longer to write an email than it does to say, it's this, or yes or no, right? A quick yes or no answer. It's a lot quicker to just beep, beep, yes. So it'll save you a lot of time in your business.
It's so true. And what's funny, this is totally random, but what's funny about my screen, at least on my side, it seems to be about this time of day where my internet, for whatever reason, starts getting me blurry, and then now it's coming back. But for whatever reason, it's like it starts getting me real blurry, and then it pops back. I know, totally random, but that's what happens when we go live, right?
Yes. There are just things. I have a cat, and one time I thought that he was going to be fine. I usually shut him in a different room so he's not interruptive. And what does he do? He opens the door with his paw, comes and is like walking across the keyboard, and like I lose the screen. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, technology gone awry thanks to the cat. But you know, things happen and it's okay. No big deal.
Exactly. It's no big deal, and you just keep moving forward. You know, as long as people can hear you or see the content, you're good to go.
Yes. Yeah. And you know, if people like pets and call them office assistants, you're like, hey, drop a picture of your office assistant and let me know if they're helpful or not.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a great idea for those who are looking for ideas on how to create engagement. You ask simple questions like that. Who's your office pet? Do you have an office pet? And then you post a picture of your office pet, for your group or your page or wherever you're at. Like, that's real life. That's real stuff. I had somebody who tagged me on my Facebook page or on my personal profile and shared this guy. It was a video of this guy sitting in his desk chair with his big dog next to him while he was on the computer. I have 2 big dogs, so technically I would need a bigger chair, but they thought it was funny and thought it would be me, imagining me and my office doing that. But this time I would have a dog on each side because I have 2.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. And people like to see behind the scenes. I think that's why, like, when you look at open rates and conversion rates, things that have to do with behind the scenes get a lot more click-through rates, because people are like, oh, a glimpse of Ed behind the scenes, his dogs. I didn't know he had dogs. What kind of dog person is he? And people are intrigued by that. Why? Because they see that you're human and you have pets, and you're a little bit more relatable. If you can do this, I can do this, and you're going to help me do this, Ed, right?
So true. It's so true. And it's funny because even today earlier, I still have to watch the video that I created, but for those of you guys talking about transparency and just trying to get real with people, is I was working on a new video for my sales page regarding building new websites, because I'm now confident with what exactly I offer. Whereas before, I thought, when I first started my business, I thought, oh, I have to do all these things for a website. Like I have to be, an expert in every single thing. And it felt overwhelming and, all of this stuff. And fast forward to now, and it's like, no, this is what I offer. I'm going to get you exactly what you need and set up the right way so that you can grow and your website will grow with you. And today I started filming a video because I decided I'll write stuff on the sales page for that, but I should do a video because that's what I'm doing now. And that's what makes it more real and really speaks to the audience, to the potential client. So I was working on one of those today, and there was lots of takes. But when you really think about who you're talking to and why, what's your why, then it gets easier. And a tip for you guys who are going to start filming anything for your products or your services or whatever is, if you're nervous about it, what you should do is record yourself, but at the beginning, think about that friend or maybe that potential client or whoever that really has that problem. So for instance, today, I had a friend in mind, and I decided when I went with the video, I said her name, and I pretended to talk directly to her. And that was what my video was about. And of course, later in the edit, you edit out that name, so then it's just really you talking. So all the things we've been talking about, commenting, audio messages, and live video, that all plays a part in helping you develop, in helping you grow. And that's going to help you with your sales and connecting with people for your different products and services. I don't know if that was a tangent, but there we go.
I don't think it was a tangent at all. And then additionally, jumping back to the scheduling and asking questions, one really powerful thing that you can schedule in advance, knowing that you're going to organically engage with it later, is a poll, asking for feedback about something that your community would want. For the gal who was in here earlier, she has a mom community, mompreneur kind of community. Asking them, what is their biggest struggle? Is it getting their toddlers entertained for 10 to 15 minutes at a time? One solution would be putting together like 15-minute toddler bags. And she could do a quick ebook on that and provide that. Not only is it creating engagement and you're getting feedback about where people are really struggling, you're also getting great market research on your own audience. Like, can I just say that again? You're doing your own market research on your own audience, and you're creating engagement by using a social media scheduler the right way. That is really, really powerful stuff right there. Like, I feel like we could talk about just that and how powerful that is for like an hour.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're definitely going to have you back on the show. So yes, I think that should be our next topic, because I would love to have that conversation. And I'm sure everyone else watching would love to have that conversation.
For sure. Let's do it because, man, okay, I'm not gonna spoil it. We're just gonna save that. I'll just leave that where it is. But you guys take that nugget and write it down, underline it, bold it, like do market research on your own audience. Use a social media scheduler, ask a question, get some feedback. It's going to be so good.
And you know, I'll also drop one more seed with that is that if you're curious about how to start using stories on Facebook or on Instagram, that's another spot that you can do that as well. I've asked some personal questions around my business in stories so that those who are actually checking it out can see it and actually comment, but they're only commenting with me, not on my actual profile, where it could be a little bit more intimidating for some of those people. So there's another option for you as well, as you could start with your stories and start asking those kinds of questions as well. Keep in mind that that's not going to be inside your group, but that's something to kind of get you started as well.
I think that's a great tip. I haven't utilized stories as much as I would like to yet. Cliffhanger, LOL. I know. You got to tune back in. It's going to be good. Yeah, stories, it creates that urgency and also this like, oh, I've got to tune in. Otherwise, I miss this opportunity to just talk with Ed because I trust him. I'm getting to know him and I don't feel quite safe to ask my question in public, but I do feel safe asking with Ed. And I think that that's a really cool place to be, building that trust with your pre-clients. You might want to call them pre-clients or potential customers. That's a really cool place to be.
I love it. And on that note, we're going to leave you guys with that cliffhanger. Brittany, thank you so much for tuning in or being on live with us and tuning in, of course. And definitely afterwards, drop your links in the comments so everyone can find you. Yes. And then we will have you back on the show because we want to continue this conversation and talk more about that as well, because that's a huge topic. So thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's always a ton of fun. It's just like having coffee with a friend, really. So just talking all the business and tech things. I love it. So thank you guys for all your comments. If you're watching the replay, be sure to comment again below and we'll be sure to follow up with you guys. So that's it, I think. Yeah.
Thank you, Brittany. Everyone else, take care.
Bye.
All right, guys, how much fun was that? We could sit here and talk for hours. That's the beauty of having these conversations. That's the beauty of teaming up with others and being able to share what you know. So afterwards, if you want to be a guest on the show, head over to checkwithed.com, click on the Facebook Live, and become a guest. Request to become a guest. That way we can share what you have to offer and know how we can grow our audiences and just have fun. That's the point. So even if you're afraid to go live, guess what? It's just you and me. We're just hanging out. Pretend like we're having coffee. Grab a drink and hang out. That's it. So definitely do that afterwards. And for now, I'm going to go ahead and switch it over to our sponsor, and we'll see you guys later. Take care. This episode is sponsored by Stupid Easy. Easily create, share, and sell your online courses. Discover more at stupideasy.com.